Hey folks, David Stewart here. Time to talk a little bit more about mobile games. This time, real games, real good games that you can play on your phone. I'd like to show you 4 of them and explain why I think these are good buys and a good option for a good game to play on your phone, particularly if you have not played it before. Now, all of these games are games from the past. These are games that appeared on previous console generations or previous generations on the PC, but are actually a pretty good experience on the phone. And the reason that I chose these is, number 1, I've played all of them on some kind of mobile device. Number 2, I think the controls work well enough on the mobile that it is a decent experience. That is, touch controls work. And number 3, the gamepad support on these games is pretty good. Number 4, I picked these because though they are all RPGs, each of them offers a different approach to gameplay from the others, meaning each one of these will have a unique experience. Each one of these will have options. You could just whip out your phone and play it, or you could play with a gamepad, or you could play it on some sort of Android device that hooks up your TV and have a pretty good experience with it. I happen to think RPGs in general work well as mobile games, mostly because the most engaging part of the gameplay is not the micro, where you are directing units in the right now or pressing buttons in a certain order, but rather the macro and meta levels of gameplay, which are a little bit deeper, a little bit more interesting, require more planning and thought, and therefore any kinds of limitations that have to do with the controls are offset by the fact that the focus of the gameplay isn't so much on the dexterous manipulation of your game screen, but rather on how you plan and execute your plan over the long term with the game. So the first game on the list is Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. This is one of my very favorite RPGs. It's a BioWare RPG from 2003, and it takes place in a time period thousands of years before the main Star Wars stories in the movies and in most of the extended universe books, which makes it have a familiar feel. It feels like Star Wars. It really does feel like Star Wars. And at the same time, it's also very novel, meaning you are going to see some familiar locations that you know from Star Wars, and you are also going to see some unfamiliar locations and some unfamiliar lore especially. It makes the entire experience really, really unique. It also has one of the best video game stories that I've played, and it has a video game story that has different endings depending upon your actions throughout the game, which has a great and satisfying feeling when you finally get to the end of the game and you can experience the ending that you have really set up for your main character. It's also the series that introduces you to classic villains such as Darth Revan and Darth Malak. On a phone, the touch controls are totally workable. It's very easy to navigate the environment, and that's because most of the combat is focused around pausing the game and selecting actions for your units, rather than having to manipulate the environment in a very precise way. You really can take your time to figure out everything and to do everything just the way that you want to, and not worry about how maybe inexact controls could negatively affect that. At the same time, the gamepad feels very good. It feels very much like the way it was originally intended to be played on the original, the OG Xbox, or on the PC. There are some additional benefits to the Android update, including the fact that it is in widescreen and no longer limited to a 4:3 ratio. If you're playing on the PC, you have to use some hacks in order to get the game to display in something other than the old 4:3 almost square ratio of the monitors of yore. It's also a game that allows you to save the game really whenever you need to. This is really important for a mobile game when you may need to open up your device and do something else on it at a moment's notice, or have to put it away, or you want to play the game for a few minutes, maybe on the bus or when you're on the potty. An RPG that wouldn't have the ability to frequently save the game or automatically save the game frequently just are not going to work out as well on the mobile platform, in my opinion, but this game does a great job of it. One of my favorites of all time, if you've never played it, the Android port is pretty good. It's about $10. Now, if you do read the reviews, you'll notice that some people aren't able to get the game working on a newer version of Android. It seems to work fine on my versions of Android, which are versions 9 and 10 on 2 different devices. So take that how you will. It works on my devices. It might work on your devices as well. A modern smartphone is plenty powerful enough to actually display and make a great experience out of Knights of the Old Republic. The second game on this list is Final Fantasy IX. Now, if you are ever having a discussion with other people about what Final Fantasy game happens to be the best one of the series, somebody is probably going to throw out Final Fantasy IX as a contender for that title, and for very good reasons. It's an absolutely beautiful game. It has an aesthetic approach that is at once nostalgic and at the same time baroque and unique. I will say that the Android port does do a pretty good job of upscaling the old painted backgrounds because that's the way that they created them. It was a flat background and animated characters walked over that background. However, the character models are so sharp that there's a little bit of a dissonance between the sharp and very clear character models and the slightly blurry backgrounds from the original PlayStation 1. If you were to play this on an original PlayStation on a CRT, you'd get a little bit more blurring of those character models and everything would be glued together a little bit more. That being said, it's still a really great looking game on your phone. I've even plugged it into my TV and seen how it looks on the big screen TV, and it looks great there as well. The contrast between the characters in the background is a little bit more pronounced, but the aesthetic is definitely dynamite, and after Final Fantasy IX, they started to take the franchise in some different directions as far as aesthetics go. I'm a fan of those new directions as well, but it's really good to take a look back at Final Fantasy IX and see the culmination of the series up to that point. It features traditional JRPG gameplay that is mostly turn-based with some active time elements involved, so you have to do your menu selections within a reasonable amount of time, but it's really easy to navigate the menus on a touch screen. It's not that difficult on a small device like a phone. It's a little easier, of course, on something like a tablet, but it's totally manageable on the phone. And if you use a gamepad, it's very easy to manage all of the menus. It feels just like playing on the original console. Again, because this is an RPG and the emphasis on gameplay is on strategy rather than on tight momentary control of the game, it lends itself well to mobile play and is in general a pretty good experience. The original soundtrack on it is one of my favorite from gaming history. It's full of great piano pieces, great little pieces that are reminiscent of the Baroque and Renaissance periods, which kind of drive the aesthetic feeling of the entire game just that much more. I should also mention there are similar ports to other PlayStation 1 era Final Fantasy games, including Final Fantasy Tactics, which I'll talk about next, as well as Final Fantasy 7 and 8. I've seen those ports. I haven't played them very much myself other than the Final Fantasy 7 port, and they're pretty good as well. So if you're looking for one of your favorite Final Fantasy games or to play one that you might have missed from the PlayStation 1 era, you can take a look at those, and they will probably give a similarly good experience. Now, one of the best features of this Final Fantasy IX port is the fact that it will save your progress pretty much on every single screen that you go across. Meaning, if you close the app down and you open it back up and you hit continue, you're going to go back to the last screen that you happen to be on. You do not have to go back to the last Moogle save point like if you were playing on the PlayStation 1. That makes this game just a whole lot more convenient to play in short bursts or on the go versus trying to play the original PS1 version. It also supports cloud data saves in case you need to erase your device or you switch to a new device. You can just download that cloud data and continue on your journey exactly where you left off, which is what I did on this game. I uploaded my data to the cloud and then I downloaded it when I got a new phone, and I was able to keep playing the game where I last left off. Absolutely a great version of the game. So I mentioned I'd talk about Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics is definitely one of my favorite games, and the version that exists on Android and iOS is called Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions. It's the same version that came out for the PSP a number of years ago. This is, for a lot of fans, considered the definitive version of Final Fantasy Tactics. It works very well on the iOS platform, which is what I've played it on. I don't really have gaming footage because I haven't played it on an Android where I can record that gaming footage, but it works reasonably well, and you can look up whatever footage you want to of the original Final Fantasy Tactics to see how it is. I did a little mobile mini review of Final Fantasy War of the Visions, which is basically Final Fantasy Tactics kind of transformed into a modern gacha game. I would say it's preferable to just play the original Final Fantasy Tactics if you've never played it before. It's a great story told mostly through dialogue boxes. It has very, very fun tactical gameplay that's very strategic in the micro level and is very, very strategic in the macro level when it comes to leveling up your characters, teaching them different jobs and skills, and making them really, really powerful killing machines. It's a very, very fun game, one of my favorites, and I really wish more companies would make more games like Final Fantasy Tactics, or we would get a proper Final Fantasy Tactics sequel one of these days. One can hope, but until then, I do recommend this game for mobile if you're looking for that great tactical experience. The one downside, I think, to this is just that there's not as much momentary saving as there is in some of these other games. But still, it's one of the best versions of the game and actually eliminates an interesting slowdown that happened on the PlayStation Portable when it came to casting spells. That's been corrected in the newer versions of it, so you really are getting the best version that's possible to get. Again, like other games that you have to deal with on mobile OSs, when the OS updates, sometimes the older games aren't as supported as newer ones because the developers have already made the game and they're not actively pursuing new sales the way that they were when they first released the game. The next on the list is The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind. Yes, Morrowind, you can play it on your phone, and it's actually a pretty good experience, let me tell you. But the way that you have to play Morrowind on your phone is a little bit different from these other games. You can't just go to the Play Store and find Elder Scrolls 3 and download it and play it on your phone. Rather, you have to play a fork of Open Morrowind, which is an engine used to play Morrowind that has been in development for quite a while now. But there's an Android fork of it. You download the APK, and from there you point it to the game files. How do you get the game files? Well, you do a PC install either from Steam or from Good Old Games or from your PC CD-ROM that you happen to have from whenever you bought the game back in 2002 or whenever it came out. So anyway, you hook your phone up to your computer and you just drag the files onto your Android phone. From there, when you open up the app on your phone, you just point it to where you put those files. I put mine on an SD card. Had plenty of room for them. They actually don't take up that much space compared to a lot of games that come out for mobile. And the whole thing seems to work pretty flawlessly. You can use touch controls on Morrowind. You can navigate around the environment pretty easily with the touch controls. The Open Morrowind version that exists on Android has little buttons for you to execute all of your basic things or bring up your menus. And overall, it's a very tolerable experience for a touchscreen. And one of the things that I think helps this game to be fun on mobile is the fact that Morrowind's combat, compared to either Oblivion or Skyrim, is not nearly as twitchy. You are pressing your attack button, and then there's a dice roll to see if your sword hits. Your enemy is basically doing the same thing. You can juke away from mages if you're pretty good at this, and you can still do it on a touch screen. But if you don't want to do that, you actually don't really have to. You can set up your character and your playstyle to be very friendly to a touch screen. If you have a warrior, your block happens automatically. It's part of the dice roll system. So it's really about setting your character up with the right skills, how you're going to choose those, and then how you're going to go through your environment and defeat the enemies one at a time, how you're going to choose everything as you level up, how you're going to find your spells, and most importantly, how you're going to explore the island of Vardenfell and what you're going to do on it. The meta level of Morrowind is very engaging, even if the combat is a little simple compared to modern games. That simplicity makes it actually better for mobile. Now, I will say the gamepad support on this one is excellent. So if you are choosing to hook up a gamepad, it's going to be just like playing on a 360 controller or an OG Xbox. Very, very easy to control and look around. Very, very easy to execute all of the combat mechanics. Really easy to, say, move around and avoid spells that are being cast by imps or mages or something else that is offending you. And it's pretty easy to navigate the menus as well with a controller. Open Morrowind and this fork of Open Morrowind really does it all and does it really well. So if you want an authentic Elder Scrolls experience on your mobile, yes, you can get it. You can play Morrowind. Now, I haven't tested it with a whole lot of mods yet, but because it's an Open Morrowind fork, I know that there are lots of mods that you can use with this. For now, I'm pretty happy to just play the original clean Morrowind. You can also crank up the field of view and have a real fisheye kind of look and see a whole lot of the environment. You can turn up the draw distance if you have a good phone and really be able to see what the environment looks like. It's a very, very good experience in general. This is also a game that supports quick saving, which means, again, you can save your game and exit very quickly if you feel like you have to. So there you go. There are 4 great games from the past that you can play on your mobile device, on your Android device in particular, right now, and all of these have been fun. They've been play tested by me, and I've enjoyed actually playing all of them. So give them a check and let me know what you want to see and what you want to hear down below. Newest book is called Keys to Prolific Creativity to help you develop your creative process and really complete your projects on time and under budget. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.